Since the first trailer for Breath of the Wild 2 back at E3 2019, fans have speculated we could be about to get a Legend of Zelda game where we could play as Princess Zelda herself. Well, today I'm going to look at the evidence that we have so far from trailers, plus also try to map out exactly what playing as Zelda might look like in the upcoming sequel to Breath of the Wild. Well, if you're new around here, I find this useful, don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below for all the latest Zelda content and turn on notifications by hitting that bell. Well, before we get into today's topic, let me know if you want to play as Zelda in Breath of the Wild 2, and let me know what you think that looks like. Well, we haven't got to play as Princess Zelda in a mainline Zelda game before, and this could be the best time to give it a go, so Nintendo really sent the rumour mill into overdrive with that first trailer from E3 2019 where we see Link and Zelda travelling through the underground caverns together. Now, Zelda was sporting a new haircut and it looked like she was ready for an adventure rather than taking on her regular princess duties. Although we immediately got very excited that Zelda was underground with Link, IG and Numa neither confirmed nor denied a playable Princess Zelda in a series of interviews after E3 2019. Here's a quote from his interview with IGN. He said, "It's kind of interesting you bring that up because in Breath of the Wild, you see Zelda and Link together all too often, so to go straight to the thought of co-op is very, very interesting to me." Well, Aonuma is absolutely correct. We did see a lot of Link and Zelda together in the memories back in the original Breath of the Wild, and we didn't get to play as Zelda then. But Aonuma did a good job of not shutting down the rumour completely. He left it open to interpretation, and interpret it we will, Aonuma. So while the first trailer sent Legend of Zelda fans into overdrive regarding the potential as playing as Princess Zelda, the second trailer at E3 2021 cooled off that theory somewhat as we see Zelda falling into the dark below. We actually saw a few seconds of this in the first trailer, although it looked like it's Link grabbing at Zelda's hand to stop her from falling, but it was cut so quickly it was difficult to see. However, in the second trailer, the shot of Zelda falling backwards into the dark depths is lingered on for a few seconds, meaning Nintendo wants us to notice this, and Zelda has once again gotten herself into some trouble. So I do think it would be a good change to play as Zelda in the series. Now, for years and years, we've been saving Zelda as Link, although you could argue in the original Breath of the Wild, we didn't really save Zelda. We acted as support to her in the defeat of Calamity Ganon. Yeah, ultimately, Zelda is a very powerful being, and if Breath of the Wild is anything to go by, she doesn't really need saving at all. She just needs a little bit of help to weaken Ganon while she deals the final blow. So given we just passed the 35th anniversary of the series, and we've travelled Hyrule in so many ways, I think it'd be a nice change of pace to play as Princess Zelda and see the world from her perspective. Well, there are so-called Breath of the Wild 2 leaks out there in the wild, and two of them point to Zelda as a playable character in the sequel. So I'm going to go through them here. If you don't want any spoilers, just skip ahead in the video. But to be honest, Nintendo hasn't confirmed these leaks to be real, so I always take these things with a massive pinch of salt unless I hear it from Nintendo. Okay, so here we go with the leaks. Zelda plays a role in character swap mechanic. She's in another dimension. You have to switch characters for puzzles to influence the regular Hyrule overworld and vice versa. Lots of teamwork between Link and Zelda. And then we got the second one here, so Zelda has the Sheikah Slate, no real combat for her from what was played, mostly stealth and puzzle solving from Zelda, no gear, and inventory is just materials and quests. Well, looking back at the first one, about that swap mechanic, I do think a swap mechanic could be feasible in the game, although having her in another dimension does seem a little bit strange to me. I can imagine her being underground and Link being overground based on the trailers that we've seen so far. As for Zelda having the Sheikah Slate, Link appears to have new abilities related to his arm. One version of Link has long hair and his right arm appears to be corrupted, plus, in another scene with Cinnamon, he has an attachment on his left arm, and if Zelda is going to be playable, it makes sense for her to use the Sheikah Slate. However, it says here, she doesn't have any items and she can only engage in stealth, which does seem a little bit limiting to me. So if you're going to make Zelda a playable character, just doing stealth and puzzle solving seems a little bit limited. I would imagine basically she would have the same abilities as Link, maybe just a little bit more magic compared to the melee combat. So it does appear as if Link and Zelda will start the game together. So the E3 2019 trailer shows Link and Zelda on an adventure, both dressed in similar clothes they have at the end of the original Breath of the Wild. And from what we've seen so far, it appears as if Link and Zelda are then split up by an earthquake, or some kind of event where the floor falls away, and then Zelda is shown falling down into a cavern, and Link's right arm is attacked or affected somehow by this energy shown off in that first trailer. Well, in the first Breath of the Wild game, Zelda was much more prominent than she had been in other Zelda games. Through the memories we saw backstory, happiness, loss, suffering, and she also spoke a lot. You know, this is the most character development we've seen from Princess Zelda in pretty much the whole series. So we had been hoping that this build-up and development meant that we wouldn't just be saving Princess Zelda once again in traditional Legend of Zelda fashion, but we'd be teaming up with her together on an adventure. Well, what exactly would a playable Zelda look like in Breath of the Wild 2? And I think we have a few options. First of all, switching between Link and Zelda. So if Zelda is going to be a playable character, I think this could be the most likely outcome. You know, Link has been the protagonist in all of the Legend of Zelda games, and if Nintendo allowed swapping between them, then they wouldn't take that away from fans, they would simply be adding to it. I can imagine playing for some of the game as Link and then switching to Zelda, playing a portion of the game, maybe solving some puzzles, and then switching back to Link. You know, given that we've seen Princess Zelda fall underground, it's not a massive stretch of the imagination to think that we could play as Zelda in underground sections of the game, and then maybe Link is above ground and in the sky. Perhaps Link and Zelda could have different objectives. For example, Zelda is focused underground, solving puzzles with the Sheikah Slate and uncovering new information that could then be somehow passed on to Link above ground. And meanwhile, Link is busy restoring the Master Sword by gathering resources and solving puzzles above ground. Well, next up, I've got co-op with Link and Zelda. So co-op play would be a dream mode for me personally in a Legend of Zelda game. I think this is probably less likely than switching between Link and Zelda, as designing puzzles for two characters in theory would be much harder. For example, adapting to the number of players, or even forcing co-op play. So I very much doubt that Nintendo would want to force co-op play, as that would be very restrictive, but having the option to play co-op would be incredible. So It Takes Two, and that was one of the games of the year in 2021, that is a great example of co-op puzzles, although the game did have to be played with two players. Now, Super Mario 3D World is another excellent Mario game re-released on Nintendo Switch in 2021, and that is a great example of Nintendo doing co-op play really well. You know, how it would work in a Legend of Zelda game, and also an open world game, I really don't know, but I'd love to see Link and Zelda inhabit the same space, have roughly the same skills and abilities, and just have an adventure around Hyrule together. You know, I'm no game designer, but I'm sure it would add exponential complexity to the game. But who knows, maybe that's what they've been working on this whole time. It's been about 5 years since the release of Breath of the Wild. They had the engine, they had the character models and the environment, and yes, they added some new gameplay mechanics through time manipulation and aerial combat, according to the patents, although perhaps co-op gameplay has been one of the reasons for the development timeline and the delays. Well, next up we've got another option, so Zelda is the main hero. This option is probably the least likely of them all, given Link is featured in the trailers, you know, particularly the E3 2021 trailer and the 2022 delay trailer. However, it would be good to flip the formula on its head and simply play through the game as Zelda. You know, she could have similar abilities and skills to Link. I'd like to see more of a focus on magic rather than the sword or weapon combat. I'm not really sure how this would go down with the Legend of Zelda fans out there, but I think it would be a good thing to have Zelda as the main character in a Legend of Zelda game. But let me know down in the comments what you think. Well, finally, we've got Zelda as a helper character. So we've had Fi, Navi, Tattle and Midna. Perhaps in the Breath of the Wild sequel, Zelda is Link's partner character. And strictly speaking, this isn't playing as Zelda, but it could be an option. We do see a glowing yellow orb in the delayed trailer in 2022, and maybe that could be Zelda communicating with Link while he's repairing the broken Master Sword. And perhaps Nintendo plan to expand on this idea throughout the game. Well, that is all the information that we've got so far about Zelda as a playable character in Breath of the Wild 2. So let me know down in the comments if you want to see Zelda as a playable character in the sequel. I would love to hear what you think. Well, that is it for this look at Zelda being a potential playable character in Breath of the Wild 2. And as always, thank you so much for watching or listening. For more Legend of Zelda content like this, hit that subscribe button down below and subscribe to Triforce Times. Or you can check me out on Twitter at Triforce Times. Where if you enjoyed this video, find it useful, liking and sharing the video would really help me out. Otherwise, check out the other videos on the channel. Well, thanks again, and I'll see you soon.